What researchers have found are specific ways and interventions in working that are really unusual that most people won't do. If you think about it, becoming a virtuoso or performing well or any level along the way is simply solving the problem that's in front of you over and over and over again until you've solved enough to play that piece well or do that performance well. In my experience, there's always a solution. And really, if we think about our experiences in performing, many times we're working on those hard sections till the day of the performance. And think about how little work the easy sections have gotten in all that prep time. No wonder some of those go wrong. When we do follow these principles that are in cognitive science and research based, we find that our performance shoots through the roof. So what I intend to do with this is just a little snapshot that we do here. We can talk all we want, we can read all the research we want, but we don't know it works until we know it works for us. And so what I do in a Practiclass is I take one of these problem sections, you know, the kind that we're working on right up to the day of the performance, and they usually fall apart in the performance and we get very upset. I make the case that there's really no reason to be doing that, and those problems can be solved earlier. So we take one of those things and in about 20 or 30 minutes we make it faster, cleaner, and easier to play. And the person will demonstrate that themselves. And I also, that's why I call it a Practiclass, I teach the principles of what we're doing so that people can apply this in their practice. When we do these unusual things and we get to that level, it creates buy-in. That is, this works, I should try something else. Because the things we have to do are unusual and they don't look like the way most people think learning works. There's a very small amount of people who figure this stuff out. That's right about the amount that we think are really talented. Anyone can do it. And so with this little thing, I hope to demonstrate that there are maybe solutions to all kinds of things that we don't know. Each week, we start with a little teeny, I call lecture vignette about an area of learning. 10 minutes or so is certainly not enough to go deeply into any of these areas. There's more deep writing and research on my website about this stuff, and it's all fully cited if you want to go and look at that stuff. But I want to talk this week about a little bit about mindset. You may have heard of it. It's kind of been a bit oversimplified and watered down and brought into our school systems as we should always feel good all the time, even if we make mistakes, and we're just the greatest people ever. It's really much more nuanced and powerful than that. Carol DWECK is a researcher at Stanford University who spent 3+ decades looking into this stuff and figuring out things that a lot of us teachers have started to find ourselves along the way. For instance, something that I realized, once I realized it was my teaching. It wasn't talent, teaching instead of talent. I stopped telling kids, wow, you're talented, and said, wow, you worked really hard. That's how you got that. And you over there, do you know why you didn't do as well? Nothing wrong with you. You're fine. You just didn't work the way that person worked. And it's not just hard work. Well, I should say it is hard work, but hard work doesn't necessarily mean amount. It means the amount of brain power you put into that work. Mindset is basically transparency in learning. It will be hard. There will be struggle. You will get worse before you get better. This happens to everyone. If it doesn't happen quickly, you're not missing some magical gift that you should have. And when you get a student to buy into that, you can get them to do what you're going to see here today, some of the very unusual things they need to do to improve. I'd like to talk to you about the manifestation of mindset because it's she identifies two types of mindset, growth and fixed. Fixed is my intelligence is static, my ability, I have a ceiling for my ability, and once I hit it, I cannot go beyond that. Only a few people can be very good at these things, and this just isn't my thing. A growth mindset says there must always be a solution, there must be a way. Let me keep looking at it. If I keep trying and keep seeking out good information and keep going by trial and error, I will eventually find something that will work. If I go to a teacher, it goes even more quickly because that cuts down on my trial and error. The teacher will get me more quickly to the things I need to do. We can actually be of a growth or fixed mindset about different things. So we can be growth in one area, fixed in another area. It's kind of a continuum, and no one is all one or all the other, though I try to be, all growth mindset, to the point of you can't excuse not doing well and say, I'm fine with it. There's always a solution. I'd like to give you an example of this, a real stark, big example of this. Let me just start up a PowerPoint. I've just got a couple of slides I'd like to show. So first I'm going to start it, then I'm going to share it. So now let me share. See if I can get it right this time, right? And And you should all see Carol Dweck's book cover right there, Mindset. Good, I see people nodding. So this is a wonderful book. I am aware, for those of you who have a little bit more knowledge about these fields, I am aware of the replication crisis and the things that have been going on with mindset. I've looked into it. It's nothing that concerns me greatly. Like anything else, some things go a little bit too far out on the edges, and the replication folks have been doing a great job, but they tried to pull in mindset, and I read some of the research. I'm not convinced yet. And in any case, I can't see not being transparent about learning. Having said all that, mindset is great. It's one of my top 3 must-reads for all learners on the planet, if it's in your language. You know, between that and self-control and the idea of talent, I think that really puts it all together. So, I'm going to talk about this guy. We're probably not all big sports folks. I'm not either, but this guy's famous. This is Wilt Chamberlain. He scored the most points in a basketball game in NBA history. He did this in like, what was it, the late 60s or late 50s, early 60s? I have my notes here. I don't know why I can't. The 61-62 basketball season. Nobody has topped it since. Laker guy, Kobe Bryant actually, did it, came close, but hasn't done it. How did he do it? Well, Wilt Chamberlain, and I'm not going to talk lots of sports terms. I'm not a big sports person either, but I think we all know what a free throw is. It's when a person goes and stands, you know, far from the basket, and no one gets in their way, and they're allowed to take 1 or 2 or I think 3 shots depending on the foul. And if you're a decent free throw shooter, that makes you a lot more dangerous because people can foul you, but you can still score points. Wilt was a terrible free throw shooter. He was not, you know, like Shaquille O'Neal, for instance. He was not a danger on the line. At the end of the season beforehand, he was a 50% free throw shooter. His career best was 61.3. In this game, he shot 89.3% free throw. If you add it up, that's, what was it, 32 or something of his 100 points were from the free throw line. What happened? Wilt had decided that season he was going to work on his free throw, and he was going to learn and do better. And his teammate, Rick Barry, who's in the Hall of Fame, and one of the reasons he's there is because he was the greatest free throw shooter of all time in the NBA, taught him and schooled him. And this is at the end of the year as he got better and better and better and better. He then started having games like this. Even Rick Barry himself said, if he keeps doing this, I can't wait to go into next year because he's going to get better. He's just starting to get this technique down. The next season, his free throw percentage went back down and it never went back up. You want to know why? Because he stopped doing what worked. He was shooting free throws with a granny shot. Okay, that's under his legs because he's so tall that the ball gets a different kind of arc. The results were clear. He did really, really well. He stopped. What does Wilt say about it in his biography? I felt silly, like a sissy shooting underhanded. I know I was wrong. I know some of the best foul shooters in history shot that way. Even now, the best one in the NBA, Rick Barry, shoots underhand. I just couldn't do it. That's right. Because of the way it made him look to other people, he gave up getting better. And if a pro player is going to, you know how many championships he sacrificed? You know how many times he let his teammates down because he didn't score all the points he could? Simply because he didn't like the way that made him look in front of other people. How many things do we do that we keep ourselves from improving and from doing what we need to do because of the way we look at something unreasonably? Actually, we're going to get to this in just a second. I want to point, let me keep that up. I want to point, here's an interesting discussion that happened in a music teachers group just yesterday. Someone said, I'm asking seriously, has anyone considered repurposing tighty whities to be a flute mask? If you don't know what a tighty whitey is, you've seen it in the Calvin Klein ads. It's men's underwear, okay? Tight men's underwear, not boxers. Now think about it. That would kind of work. They've got like little holes in the side, but it might not go over. Why? Simply because they're used for another purpose. This is mindset. Now, I don't know if I would do that because there would probably be enough backlash. I don't know. You have to take into account people's mindset and their tastes and what offends them and things like that. But when it's something like this and we stand in our own way, and that's what I call mindset. It basically explains why most humans can't get out of their own way when it comes to learning. Have you ever been in a practice room? If you're a student, have you ever been in a practice room and you don't want to practice something that makes you sound bad because you're worried someone outside might hear you? I've been there. And we've just cut down on the things that we can do in our practice simply because of something that probably won't happen. And if it did, who cares? So there's a really great chart that Carol Dweck, this is actually, you can find this in color online, worked with an artist to make, and it kind of talks about the general differences between fixed and growth mindset. And let's see if we recognize some of these areas, because if we're a fixed mindset in any of these areas, it will, at least to some extent, cut off how much we focus and how hard we work. And when I mean how hard, I don't mean time, how much we focus and how much we're willing to do the interventions that help us learn better. So for instance, when it comes to challenges, fixed mindset avoids challenges. Haven't we all known a few people who play the same 3 pieces for years because they don't want to learn anything new? Why? Because if you learn something new, it's a challenge and it will make you look worse rather than better. And what DWECK has been able to show is that kids many times will avoid taking on a challenge, or students I should say, will avoid taking on a challenge because it jeopardizes their designation of talent amongst their peers. That's right, we don't get better because we don't want people to think we're not good. That may be the way things are, but it makes no sense for our learning. And I should add, for any teachers out there and parents, this is a teachable skill. These are cultural things. You can teach someone. You can't do it once. You have to do it over and over. Every time I see mindset come up, I say something. So you see what's happening there? That's a growth mindset, fixed mindset. And then I'll talk to the student. Does it make sense to do it this way? Actually, it doesn't. It makes more sense here. Why wouldn't you do it? You know, I don't know. I just felt kind of okay, so let's try it. Then you try it and it works. And now the person wants, that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. Now the person has a skill that they know is going to be duplicatable, and the mindset changes. And that's what she talks about in growth mindset, where you embrace challenges, where you have a solution. There's always a solution. There's always something to try that will work. We'll find that today. Obstacles. As soon as we hit an obstacle, the fixed mindset gives up easily. I've tried as hard as I could. I don't know what else to do. And in fact, people can be offended here. Are you saying I didn't try hard enough? I find this all the time. No, I'm saying there are things left on the table that you haven't tried. Why not try them? The growth mindset persists in the face of setbacks. I can tell you truly there is always a solution. Always a solution. Effort. The fixed mindset sees effort as fruitless or worse. How many of us have gone into the practice room using the play and pray method, where we just go in, we try some things, or we know our students are doing it. We're trying some things, and they may work and they may not. Some of our effort is good, some of it isn't. It's very discouraging. And what's the reward we get for our effort? Usually flawed recitals. And we're not getting what would encourage us to do more. Well, if you have a growth mindset, you see effort as the path to mastery. If you're putting forth effort and it's not working, you need to put forth a different effort. Let's go find something different. I think that's why people are here today, to find those sorts of things. And that's great. There is always a solution. And the other thing is when it comes to that, human beings tend to put really weird time limits on learning stuff. Like, it's September, and I'm going to put all this really difficult stuff on my recital in April. And I'm going to practice really hard between now and then. And then when it doesn't happen in April, see, I just don't have what it takes. When did Mother Nature promise you that the neurobiological changes that need to take place in your brain in order to perform that difficult music were going to happen in exactly 7 months? What if it's 7.5 months? What if it's 10 months? Right? Where do we get this idea that I've worked hard enough and I just couldn't get it? You know, I will also add this as to how we get different poor impressions of things. Any music teachers are here. How many people do you meet that says, I played the insert instrument here, and I just couldn't get it. I tried. I didn't have the talent for it. What I always do is I say, did you practice? Sure I did. Did you do what your teacher said? Did you stop and check the things that were wrong and go over them? Well, not really. There you go. Did you write down your teacher's directions, or at least try to think of them while you were practicing? And there it is. And there's no insult in that. It's a glorious thing. Wow, I can do it. It's not a I'm not doing it thing. It's a I can do it thing. This is a big one. Criticism. The fixed mindset ignores useful negative feedback, and I would add sometimes takes it as a personal insult. This goes on a lot on social media. The growth mindset learns from criticism. And let's be clear, there's a difference between an insult and criticism. you're stupid and you smell is not constructive criticism. You played that wrong and you need to hold your bow differently, and I'm going to show you how, is. Yet both can be taken the same way, and when people do take it that way, you have to bring them into a growth mindset. What I said was, you just need to do your work differently. This is where people take the idea that if I have a wrong answer or do something wrong, then I'm a wrong person, or I'm wrong as a person. That's what needs to be taught. The fixed mindset says, I don't want to deal with that. It makes me feel like less, and I'm going to get angry and blame someone else for making me feel like that. The growth mindset says, oh, cool, I didn't recognize that was a problem. Now that I know about it, I can fix it. Then finally, we know this one well, success of others. The fixed mindset feels threatened by the success of others. Growth mindset finds lessons and inspiration in the success of others. Come on, how many times have you seen someone on YouTube who's like 8 or 10 or 12 years old who could wipe the floor with you on your instrument? Okay, right? Like, oh my gosh, look at, okay. What do? What's the first thing out of our mouths? I quit, right? And well, we're joking, of course, but that's how we feel, isn't it? You take that into your practice room, and even if you can force yourself to do the work thinking that you're so inferior, you will shave percentages off of how much you focus, because it will feel, let's get back to effort, as fruitless or worse. It will feel that your effort has been fruitless. All that 10-year-old or 12-year-old has is more hours of deliberate practice. Period. And the research is clear. Period. End of story. You're not doing anything wrong. You're on the path. What I would suggest, and this is what Carol Dweck says about the growth mindset, and this is what she has found the successful people with growth mindset do. What I would suggest is you immediately go, what could I do better to get there? Do I really listen to my teacher? Are there other things I can do? And that's when we find lesson and inspiration in the success of others. Why don't I find out what that person not is doing now, but did when they had the same amount of practice hours as I have? So that's a bit of mindset.